I walked into my internship at Red Hat with almost no idea how to build software in a team setting. Of course, I'd done hackathons with my friends before, but hackathons aren't really known for implementing best practices. Now, I was really nervous at the beginning of my internship, needless to say, and over the course of 12 weeks, my team was great and helped me gain a lot of confidence in myself as a software engineer and just learn a whole lot about the process in general. Now, I'm making this video to help out people that were like me at the beginning of my internship, confused and overwhelmed by all the things that it feels like you need to know. Now, I'm going to talk about basically 3 big skills that I learned during the internship. I tried to separate them into technical and non-technical, but you'll notice that there's quite a lot of overlap. So let's jump straight into it. As a quick disclaimer, this video was made from the perspective of somebody who just did their first internship, so they were a beginner in the software engineering field. So if you disagree with some of the advice in the video, please do so in the comments, leave other suggestions. But again, this is just a video surrounding my own experiences, and it's not meant to be completely general advice. If you're working as a software engineer, especially if you're working as a software engineering intern, you're going to learn a lot of technical skills. The number one technical skill I learned, I would say, would be unit testing, because, I knew what unit testing was, but before the internship, I never really written any unit tests for any of my personal projects because I never really felt the need to, and for smaller projects, I still really don't feel that need. But with the specific code base I was working on at my internship, my team showed me how important it was to have unit tests so that you would know if a small change that you're making to the code would break anything else in the code. And really, that's what kind of showed me the importance of unit tests, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. What actually is a unit test? So a unit test, according to the basic definition that most people would say, is a piece of code that tests the smallest logical unit possible for a code base. Now, again, this is a little bit abstract, so I'm going to try to give you an example, but again, this will be a little bit abstract. Suppose you have 3 functions, A, B, and C. Function C calls both functions A and B. Instead of just testing function C, you should be testing function A, B, and C. Or that's how I like to think of it, because those are each separate logical pieces of code. Now, of course, that's not exactly it, and it's a little bit hard to think of it in the abstract, so I would encourage you to try and implement unit tests in some of your past projects. The best way to do this is just Google unit tests in Python, Rust, JavaScript, whatever language you're looking at, and try to implement it in one of your old past projects. You'll find that, of course, it'll be a little bit challenging at first to understand what you have to unit test, but you'll understand it pretty quickly. Of course, don't get stuck in tutorial hell because that is a big no-no. Before my internship, the only Git commands I knew were add, push, pull, and commit. I learned a lot about Git during my internship, but this wasn't restricted to just the commands themselves. Of course, I learned some new commands like rebase, which I didn't know beforehand, but a lot of the things I learned were a little bit on the softer skill side. How big my pull request should be, how big my commit should be, how to write good commit messages, keeping my diffs small, and all of that. And that's not something I really ever considered when working on personal projects. When working on personal projects, I kind of just chucked in a bunch of code in one commit, and that ruins the point of Git. Git was made so that you can kind of version control your software. So you can see how things change in between incremental versions. And if you're throwing in a bunch of changes at once in every single commit, then it gets hard to see why things changed and what they changed and how often they were changing. It just ruins the point of Git. And of course, for me, especially in personal projects, it's hard to see why things changed because my commit messages were really stupid. One of my favorites to do is just added whatever file, or just stupid commit messages like this. None of these things are good practices. And of course, it doesn't really matter for personal projects because who are you working with? But good commit messages never hurt anybody, and I'm going to be trying my best to implement better practices for Git in my own personal projects. Now, you yourself can, implement all of this in your next project. There's no good way to learn it besides just doing it with whatever next project you put up on GitHub. Now, if you actually want to learn the commands themselves, there's a great website called learngitbranching.js, I think, and that'll teach you all the commands you really need to know. But in terms of the softer skills, like keeping your diffs small, writing good commit messages, there's really no substitute for just starting a new project and making sure that your GitHub repository for that project follows these good practices. No substitute for practice. Good luck on it. Next up, we have code reviews, which is another thing I never really did while working on personal projects or projects with friends. Now, code reviews are pretty closely linked to your usage of GitHub or GitLab, I think. Take that with a grain of salt. So, all of this advice is pretty generalized. Now, for those of you who were like me and didn't know what a code review was, a code review is basically just when team members review your code. Whenever you submit a merge request or a pull request, whatever it's called in your platform, they will look at your code, make sure that it fits into the repository stylistically, make sure it's simple and readable, and that's basically it. Code reviews generally depend, team from team. People look for different things, but in general, they may just want to make sure that it's simple, readable, and maintainable, because that's what makes a good code base, or that's what it seems like to me as a beginner intern. But as you progress, you'll begin to see different ways to look at the code base. And at the beginning of your internship, or this was true for me, I had no idea how to do a code review. I thought that it was just seniors that reviewed juniors and interns' code, and in my team that was still technically true because only seniors could approve the code that was being merged. But interns are expected to look at code and try and leave some comments. It doesn't necessarily have to be feedback on the code, it doesn't have to be things that they have to change, but it could be questions and try to participate in code reviews. I didn't participate in as many code reviews as I should have, and I kind of regret that because it would have been a great learning experience. But even if you're not participating in code reviews, take a look at other code reviews that are happening around the code base, around your team's GitHub repository or GitHub organization. That's a great way of learning because you'll see what other comments people are leaving and learn from those comments. Be like, okay, this is what we're looking for in terms of style when we're submitting to the code base. This is what we're looking for in terms of simplicity. This is how to leave a comment. This is what to look for when you're reviewing a code base. There's a lot to learn from code reviews, even if you're not the one doing them. In fact, the way that I kind of figured my way around the code base in the first place was looking at code reviews that other people had submitted on a project and going through the comments and be like, okay, they made these decisions because of this reason, and that kind of helped me get an understanding of the code base. And this is hard to do at first because still you don't really know the code base at the beginning, but that's what code reviews are for, kind of, to help people understand what's happening, the decisions being made, and it's a great way to learn as an intern, not just your hard coding skills, but also your soft skills for communication. It's awesome. Code reviews are really cool. Speaking of code reviews, this brings me to the fourth and final point. Being able to take criticism. Now, there's a common saying that goes around software engineering: you are not your code. The code that you're writing is simply just the work you're doing. It's not representative of you as a person. So when somebody leaves feedback on your code, asks you to change something, tells you that, maybe this could be simplified, don't take it harshly. This was something I had a little bit of trouble with at the beginning. When I used to get code reviews at the beginning of my internship, I would kind of have to just sit there looking at the email for 5 minutes before I clicked on it and scrolled to the comments because I got a little bit anxious. I'm like, oh no, what if they said you're a bad engineer? What if they fire me in the code review? You need to get over that. I don't know, that sounds like a me problem. Maybe it's true for some of you, but in general, code reviews are meant to help you grow as an engineer and to help the team write good code. So don't be afraid of criticism. Criticism is given to you with the intention of helping you grow as an engineer. That's not meant to put you down and say, oh, you're bad, you suck, get off the team. Criticism is good, and honestly, everybody's gonna be giving you constructive feedback. It's not gonna be like, this code sucks, change this line. We're gonna be like, what if we did it like this, right? So the wording is always going to be nice, and that was true for my team. Maybe you have a bad teammate, but that's besides the point. The point being, make sure that you're able to take feedback well and try not to internalize things people are saying about your code as things that they're saying about you. You are not your code. Everything that you're doing is great, the work, but at the end of the day, your value as a person doesn't come from your code, so don't be offended if somebody leaves comments on your code review. And as a side note, even the senior engineers on my team get comments on their code, so it's not that you're bad as a coder, it's just that everybody has different ways of writing code, and everybody's gonna leave suggestions from once in a while on your code reviews. Don't be offended by it. Trust me, you'll live a lot happier. That's all I have to say for this video. I hope you enjoyed what was essentially me just talking about all the random things I learned as, a first-time software engineer. And, if you want to follow along with me on my journey, hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'd be very grateful for you to join. And thank you so much for watching through the whole video. It really helps the channel out a lot. In fact, go share this with a friend. Maybe they'll enjoy it. If you want to talk to other people who are on their own programming journeys, join my Discord server, links in the description down below. Follow me on Instagram at SidCodes with 2Ds and Twitter at SidCodes with 1D. Again, thank you so much for watching through the entire video. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.